I'm Julie, and Catherine is not here this week. She was unable to make it. So we're going to go through Commands of Christ number 6. We start off with pastoral care. So you would ask the people in your group, how are they doing? How was their week? And then you would go into worship, which would be singing some songs, reading a psalm, praying through a psalm, but taking time to worship and to adore God. And you can pray for each other too during this time. Oftentimes you can link some of that with praying for people. The next segment is loving accountability. You would ask each person how they did with their grow and their go assignments. Did they do the things that they feel that God was asking them to do for that week? And are they going and sharing with people? Who did they share with? How did that go? The next section is vision casting. In vision casting, I want you to look at how the white harvest and atypical people in this passage. So we're going to read John 4:35. Do you not say 4 months more and then the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Some translations say white for harvest, but ripe, white. Anyways, Jews and Samaritans hated each other and wouldn't even speak to each other. Yet Jesus found an atypical person, the woman at the well, and that's what this passage is about, the woman at the well who Jesus talked with. She was an atypical person, and she was ripe for harvest. She in turn reached out to her whole community and brought them to meet Jesus. So even in hard places, God has placed atypical people who are open to the gospel. I mean, most of the Jews would never have thought that they would find someone receptive to God among the Samaritans. I mean, those two did not get along. So even in places where you hear that, oh, the gospel has not penetrated there, people, they won't follow Jesus there, there's someone there that God has prepared who is a key to that culture. And so you want to look for someone who is ready to hear what you have to say about Jesus. And the way you find it out is you share about Jesus and you see who responds. So now we're going to move on to the lesson, which is, we're going to read Matthew 22:37 through 39. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first commandment, and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Now we're going to read the story of the Good Samaritan, which is in Luke 10:25-37. On an occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbors yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert of the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." So, the next segment we're going to discuss this story using the questions about God, people, and S.P.E.C. So, what does this story tell you about God? You're going to have to answer this because it's just you and me. And you can pause this if you're with a group. What does this story tell you about people? Is there a sin to avoid? Is there a promise to claim? Is there an example to follow? Is there a command to obey? So why do we ask these questions? We ask these questions solely to get people to respond. And these are, if you have other questions, if you have better questions, feel free to use them. But these are just, if you have a certain set of questions that you use, it's easier for people to remember that so they don't get stuck. Like, oh, what do I say now? So, God, what does this story say about God? What does it say about people? Is there a sin to avoid, a promise to claim, an example to follow, a command to obey? Other questions you could add is, who do you identify with most in this story? Or what do you think about the story? Or how do you feel about this story? But the point is, this is not just us talking to people. We want people to respond. We want people to take ownership of reading the Word, finding things in it, and pulling it out. And we want to encourage people to do that. And you worry, well, what if they say something wrong? You can say, well, that's an interesting answer. We don't have to correct every fault. If someone comes and says something like, I think Jesus is an alien, then you simply say, well, let's look in the Word. Can you show me somewhere in the Bible where it says that Jesus was an alien? So if you stick with the Word, and you go back there, someone kind of goes off on a rabbit trail. So we want to see what the Word has to say about this. Then that will keep you in good stead. And I always say, so what does the Bible say? That's how you guard against people going off into false teachings. But like I said, you don't have to correct every mistake that people made. Think about if every mistake you made, especially growing up as a child, if people pointed it out every single time, you wouldn't want to try to do anything because you'd be so self-focused on your mistakes. There's a lot of things that we can let slide. If it's important, if you think it's important, then yes, address it, but address it with love, address it in gentleness, and go back to the Word. But don't feel like you have to nitpick on every little thing. And there are some things in the Bible that are up for dispute. There are some things in the Bible that people on two different sides who are godly Christians may have a disagreement on. And that's not why I say it's not a hill to die on. There are certain things that are worth dying for, but there are many things that are not worth dying for, and you don't need to get involved in those and let people have opinions on those. So we're going to move on now to practice telling the story.